When I came into the office on Monday, Dan said, "Would you like to relax for a couple of days in Florida?" Elliot Rogers looks like he needs a little support given all the turmoil in the Dow over the last couple of months. Since Dan and I were co-owners of our firm, we usually no longer traveled to clients. That was what young, eager subordinates were needed for. But Elliot Rogers and his wife have been with us for over 15 years and have invested almost $100 million, so they received special attention. I don't mind. In fact, it's a very good time. The kids were off to college, and Carrie was visiting a friend in Nashville for a week. So, of course, I will go to calm him down. A plus for me was the opportunity to see my Uncle Tony. Now almost 80, he lived right on a picturesque river an hour north of Miami, and was as interesting a man as ever. I drove home, packed a bag for a couple of days, headed to the airport, and by 3:30 I was sitting with Tony on the balcony of his apartment, drinking Sam Adams and listening to the same old stories I had enjoyed since childhood. Every time a boat passed by, he fell silent and picked up his binoculars. "Are you going to end this story or what, Tony?" "A guy at a bar attacked you." He grinned without taking his binoculars from his eyes. "Hold on, my young friend. At my age, a guy doesn't get to see bare breasts very often." He handed me the binoculars and, to my amazement, I saw 3 teenage girls and a guy waving from a small sailboat. All the girls were grinning and topless. Tony took the binoculars back. "See what I mean?" He laughed with satisfaction. We shared family stories and drank a few more beers until I started thinking about dinner. Maybe a couple of steaks at a place Tony liked around the corner. He picked up the binoculars again, looked at the pale blue boat, focused carefully and just stared. Then he said, "Holy crap," and handed the binoculars to me. It was an approximately 10.5-meter boat called My Blue Angel, gently drifting with the current. Lying on his back on the cushions in the cockpit was a stocky, short-haired guy, about 30 years old or so, and he was having sex with a beautiful brunette, clearly somewhat older, who was vigorously riding him, throwing her head back. On her right shoulder, she had a large tattoo of a Chinese character. You may wonder why I noticed the name of the boat or the tattoo on the naked woman. The explanation is simple enough. It was my wife, Carrie. Without saying a word, I handed the binoculars back to my uncle and listened to his comments until the couple disappeared from sight around the bend. When they disappeared, he lowered his binoculars and said, "What a spectacle it was." I see couples doing this from time to time, Jack. But let me tell you, this lady was hot. If I were 20 years younger, more like 50, I would say. I smiled at him. I was very upset, but I wasn't going to talk to Tony about it. We went to get our steaks, after which I brought Tony home and he went to bed. I was in my hotel room by 9:30 and had a lot to think about. You might think that I would have been destroyed, but that was not the case. Carrie and I were married for about 12 years. She was a great stepmother to my 2 children. My first wife died in a train accident, and a very good wife to me. I loved and appreciated her, and I knew that she loved me. And yet, somehow it didn't shock me that she cheated on me. Carrie has always been a restless person. She never liked to do one thing for long. Over the course of our marriage, she had 5 different jobs, a variety of hobbies from knitting to country dancing to horse riding, and she just never wanted to sit still. Carrie and I had a sex life that pleased me. Of course, she was as interested in sex as I was, and had no problem dragging her into the bedroom from time to time. Sometimes we had gentle, even ordinary, older married sex, but sometimes she had me to hell. In fact, I thought one of her favorite positions for hardcore sex was riding me, just like she had ridden that guy on the boat. Even exhibitionism is okay to some extent. Carrie tried several times to get me to have sex with her in public. We tried it on a park bench in the back seat of my car a couple of times, but I gave up on it all. I didn't want my name in the newspapers. To put it bluntly, I wasn't crushed. I was angry. I was hurt. But I didn't see my marriage necessarily ending because of it. I didn't think Carrie wanted to humiliate me. She didn't know where Uncle Tony lived, and she certainly didn't suspect that I would be looking at the river that day. But 2 things were absolutely clear to me. I was going to find out a lot more about what was going on, and I was going to have sex with Stephanie Prince. To that end, I called Marjorie Bales in Nashville, where Carrie was supposed to be spending a week. She seemed surprised by my call and a little wary. "Sorry to bother you, Marjorie, but Carrie's cell phone doesn't seem to be working and I can't get through. Could you call her for a minute?" "Oh, sorry, Jack, she's in the shower." "Can I ask her to call you back?" We talked on the phone and I smiled to myself. As I expected, Marjorie was covering for her old friend. I wondered how many of Carrie's previous trips to Nashville had actually been vacations with one friend or another. Carrie called me on my cell phone about 45 minutes later. Quite a long shower, and we chatted amicably. I told her I was on my way to meet a client but didn't mention where I was. Before we hung up, she said she loved me, missed me, and wanted to see me on Saturday. The point is that I believed her. She really loved me. I didn't think the affair was intended to get out of our marriage or to get the better of me. I figured that my anxious wife was simply not well suited for a monogamous life. After meeting Elliot Rogers the next morning, I spent half an hour with Thomas Giardino, a private investigator. I told him all about the short-haired guy from My Blue Angel, gave him a photo of my wife to copy, and left him a sizable check. "There's no need to break in on them," I told him, "and I don't need compromising photographs. Just carefully find out what the matter is. Did she stay with him, or was it a chance meeting? Who is this guy? Where is he from? And what does he do for a living? I want to try to figure out how they met and how long they've been doing this." Before I boarded the plane back to Charlotte, I called Stephanie Prince. "Hello? This is the man of your dreams. Are you free for dinner today?" Yes, I'm serious. Carrie's out of town and I want to take you to dinner. What do you think of Fig Tree?" "Fantastic. I'll pick you up at 8 Mole. And listen, we're something that is worthy of this beautiful Bodhi. I want every man in the restaurant to hate my guts tonight." I laughed and hung up. Then he called the Fig Tree and made a reservation. Stephanie Prince was a tall, very hot redhead, about 32 years old, who lived 3 blocks from Carrie and me. She sold real estate, knew almost everyone in the city, dated a lot, and for some unknown reason, was partial to me, although I was a fairly average guy of 41 years old. 3 or 4 years earlier, after we had met at a few neighborhood parties, she made a serious proposal to me. We were having lunch downtown and she said, "Jack, would you do me a favor?" "Of course," I replied. "Say the name." "I've been going through a damn hard period lately. Could you take a couple of hours off today and have sex with me until you lose consciousness?" When I finished picking my jaw up off the table, we talked about it. If I had ever considered cheating on my wife with anyone, it would have been Stephanie, and I told her so. But I took my marriage vows seriously. "I know you're happily married, Jack, and I'm not trying to break you up from Carrie. I'm not looking for a husband or even magical romance. I love sex and I like you. If you want to lie on the bed with me 1 or more times, just tell me." I let her go, but did not thank her for her flattering offer. And I didn't forget about it either, although it wasn't until I saw Carrie cheating on me with that guy that I thought that someday I'd do something about it. The steelhead trout at the Fig Tree was the best I've ever had, but it paled in comparison to my night in Stephanie Prince's bed. Based on my time with her, I have to say that extramarital sex, even with condoms, is as amazing as people say it is. She was passionate, experienced, and tireless. I still don't know why she finds me attractive, but she fucking loved having sex with me until I couldn't get hard anymore. The dinner was surprisingly serious. We flirted, sure, and Stephanie kept dropping hints about her plans for me after dessert, but we also really talked. She's so attractive that it's easy to overlook how thoughtful and smart Stephanie is, but our conversation reminded me of that. It didn't take long before she asked the $64,000 question, right after we placed our order. "Okay, Jack, spit it out. I'm glad you called, but what's going on?" I smiled. "Can't I have an elegant dinner with the most beautiful woman I know?" "What about Carrie?" "Yes, she's attractive too, but," I said. Stephanie slapped my hand, smiling. "Very funny. Really, what's the matter? You've been keeping your distance since I showed interest a couple of years ago, so why today?" I told her what I saw in Florida and how I felt about it. "This sucks," she said. "I'm sorry, Jack." And I knew she was serious. We spent most of dinner talking about marriage, infidelity, and trust. Stephanie had been divorced twice, both times with hot guys who cheated on her, and then basically gave up on her marriage, so she was very sympathetic. Over a cup of coffee, she asked, "So what are you going to do?" I smiled. "In the short term, I'm going to take you home and hope you invite me in." She gave me a half smile and gently touched my leg under the table with her foot. After that, I don't know. I think Carrie and I can get through this. Maybe. I need to know how serious this affair of hers is, and I have a boyfriend looking into it. But you know what? I think it's time to stop talking about Carrie. I signaled for the check. 5 minutes later, we were walking hand in hand to the car. 20 minutes later, we were lounging on her couch, and a little later, we were naked in Stephanie's bedroom. Over the next few days, the smile on my face from my amazing night with Stephanie came and went, interspersed with dark thoughts about Carrie and the future of our marriage. People at work must have noticed something, because on Thursday, Dan walked into my office, closing the door behind him, and asked, "What?" Sighing, I told him the story. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "Ask me next week," I said. "It depends on what the private investigator finds and what Carrie says. She'll be back Saturday night, so we'll see. I spent Thursday night with Stephanie, and it was just as hot as the first time. I brought Chinese takeout, and we fed each other in bed when we weren't having sex or giving each other affection. You know? I told her around midnight while we were sleepily watching Letterman. I'm having a really good time. And this is a surprise for you? Jerk!" She laughed. "No, that's not what I'm talking about." I kissed her. "Sex with you is just fabulous, Stephanie. I'm serious. You are an amazing lover. But you turned me on so much that I didn't immediately notice how much fun I had when we weren't having sex. Just talking to you, laughing, watching you dribble Kung Pao chicken onto those amazing breasts." I leaned down and licked the bud on her breast, enjoying her trembling. I can't believe no one has bought you yet. You deserve better than me, to be honest." She turned off the TV and pulled me towards her for a kiss. "You're cute, Jack. And I had a great time, too. But don't underestimate yourself. You are a bigger prize than you think. And if Carrie doesn't pull her head out of her ass, then women will be lining up to try and make you feel better about yourself." "Including you?" I asked. She looked away. "Don't know. I've almost come to terms with the fact that I'm not a settled girl, but let's just say I don't know and leave everything as it is." We left everything as it was, both realizing that things had become very serious. We cuddled up to each other, kissed a little more, and fell asleep. And in the morning, Stephanie was light and funny. We took a shower together, joked at breakfast, and went our separate ways. Thomas Giardino, a private investigator in Florida, sent me an email on Friday afternoon. "Here are our preliminary results. Please read and study the attached files and then call me at the office. I will be there before 6 p.m. I read the report, looked at a half-dozen photos, then called and spoke with Giardino for about 20 minutes. The owner of the Blue Angel was a 34-year-old guy named Roger Dion. He was the vice president of sales for a pharmaceutical supply company and, according to his neighbors, something of a woman lover. He almost always had a woman at home. She would splash in the pool, sunbathe on the deck, or even moan and scream in his bedroom. And the women never stuck around for long. Dion apparently loved variety, not monogamy. The private investigator's photos included several shots of Carrie and Dion together, lying by the pool, getting out of a BMW in his driveway, and one of them eating together at a table in the back of the house. There was no sex involved in any of them, although it was obvious that she was living with him. Several people around Dion recognized Carrie from the photo I provided, but no one could remember seeing her before this week. So what could I conclude? First, Dion was most likely Carrie's short-term boyfriend, or at least a recent acquisition. They probably met through work, since Carrie worked in the purchasing department of a hospital in Charlotte and constantly dealt with drug supply companies and their executives. Whether she planned to date him after this week was impossible to say, but he did not look like a second husband. Since Carrie had been going to her friend Marjorie's about once a year for the last few years, it was likely that old Roger was just my wife's latest fling and not the one and only. She was clearly very careful in her adventures, since I would have no idea what she was doing if not for Chance and Uncle Tony's binoculars. I still have a few questions, but not many. There is only one main thing. What should I do about it? Baby, I missed you. Carrie casually kissed me and hugged me tightly. I kissed her back, then took her suitcase, and we walked into the airport parking lot, with her holding my hand tightly. I hope you have a bottle of champagne for us. Because both Carrie and I traveled periodically for work, or in her case, to visit to my friend Marjorie in Nashville. We got into the habit of celebrating our reunions with champagne in bed, followed by hot sex. Tonight was no exception. She took a quick shower while I unloaded her bags and got out the champagne, and we spent the next couple of hours playing in bed. She looked happy and excited as always, but for me it was different. Fun, physically satisfying, but a little empty. When we finished, she snuggled up to me, kissed my neck, said, "Thank you, baby. I love you," and fell asleep a few minutes later. When Carrie came into the kitchen in her dressing gown and a sleepy smile on Sunday morning, I had already made coffee and was just serving omelettes and toast. She hugged me, smiling, then accepted a cup of coffee. We ate in silence, Carrie looking at me tenderly, squeezing my hand from time to time, and I just sat and watched. After the second cup, when she began to come to her senses, Carrie said, "That was pretty sweet last night, baby. The best part of being away is always coming back when you remind me of what I was missing." She smiled at me, lovingly. I liked it, but that didn't stop me from saying what I've been waiting for. "Do you think I should have used a condom, Carrie? I mean, if you're having sex with Roger Dion, do you think we're safe?" The smile froze on her face. "Jack, What? What you said?" I waited, letting the silence grow. Her face became very pale, and she could not bear my gaze. "Roger," I said. "A guy in Florida with a boat. Don't play dumb, honey, it doesn't suit you. Did you use condoms with him? What about the other guys you cheated on me with? I think there were at least 5 or 6. Have you been a good girl and practiced safe sex?" Carrie started to cry. "Jack, it's not, what? Oh God, baby, I'm so sorry, I didn't. Oh my God." She buried her face in her hands, crying even more. When she looked up at me, her face was stained with tears. I just stared back. "Baby, Jack, oh God. I know I did something terrible, but how did you know?" Silence. I didn't intend to answer this question. She looked at me and recoiled from everything she saw. Now she was crying harder, blowing her nose into a napkin. I got up from the table. "I'll go take a shower." When I returned to the kitchen half an hour later, shaved and dressed, Carrie was still sitting at the table, but she had already cleared the dishes and washed her face. "Honey, I know I have to explain everything to you. I know I screwed up, and I love you so much, I just can't." "Sorry, Carrie," I said. "Not now. I'm supposed to be at Stephanie Prince's house. I think I'll be back for dinner. Then we can talk." "Stephanie Prince?" Her sad face became puzzled. "Yes. Do you remember Stephanie? The real estate agent? Tall with red hair? It turns out that she is very skillfully caressing my manhood, as if she enjoys doing it, you know what I mean?" Carrie looked like pigs had just flown through the kitchen window. "Stephanie, are you having sex with her?" Well, when I found out that our marriage was not what I thought, I accepted her proposal. "We have sex, yes. So, see you at dinner." Stephanie did a really good job of caressing my manhood, although I wouldn't say she did it any better than Carrie. That day in Stephanie's bed, I left what I thought was a pretty good opinion of myself, considering what I had done with Carrie the night before. Then we lay around for a while, eating sandwiches and watching the Carolina Panthers. Around 6, I got up to take a shower, enjoying the sounds from the bedroom of Stephanie yelling at the judges to at least throw the damn flag once in a while, huh? When I left, she said, "Would you like to stay for dinner? We could order Chinese food again, or pizza or something else." I smiled. "Sorry, but I can't today. I told Carrie I'd be home for dinner." Stephanie sat up straight, giving me a perfect view of her beautiful breasts. "What the hell? You mean she's back and you're here? Does she know?" "Yes, she returned home last night. In the morning I told her everything. About her sex buddy, I mean. And she knows exactly where I am, although I don't think she likes it very much." A slow smile appeared on Stephanie's face. "You're a tough son of a bitch, aren't you?" She got out of bed, pulled on her nightgown, and came over to hug me. "So what does this mean?" she muttered. "About us?" I looked at her. "Honestly, I do not know. There aren't many alternatives, and after tonight I'll know a lot more. I can get a divorce, and then you will be item #1 on my to-do list." I smiled at her. "Or, I guess Carrie and I could agree to an open marriage given what she's doing. In this case, see above. Or just maybe we'll work things out and go back to where I thought we were all along." Stephanie patted my shoulders, looking at me thoughtfully. "I really like you, Jack. Both in bed and outside of it, actually. But I don't think I should be somewhere in the middle of your marriage. That's not what I had in mind when we started playing." I kissed her. "I understand. First, we need to deal with Carrie. After that, we'll see. But I definitely wouldn't say no to more of what we did, Steph." Catching her by surprise, I grabbed her ass and lifted her into my arms. Squealing, she wrapped her legs around my waist and hugged me, giggling as I kissed her deeply again. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. When I entered the house, soft music was playing, Vivaldi or something like that. I looked into the dining room and saw a table set for two, with serving mats, pretty napkins, and 2 tall candles. Before I could go look for Carrie, she came in from the kitchen with fried chicken in a large frying pan. She put on one of her beautiful dresses, much more chic than usual, for a quiet dinner at home on the weekend. "There you are," she said in a voice full of feigned amusement. "Dinner is ready, so sit down." A moment later, she returned from the kitchen with 2 more dishes, rice, pilaf, and spinach. As I sat down, she took a bottle of good white wine, which we both love, from the refrigerator and poured us a glass. "This looks delicious, Carrie," I said. We silently drank a glass of wine and ate our dinner without much conversation. There was some talk about innocent things, the latest news from the kids, what happened at my job. But there was too much left unsaid, too many topics to avoid. It was intense, and she was clearly enjoying it a lot less than I was. When she cleared the table and brought out a beautiful apple pie, I suddenly had enough. All day, what is it, all week, thoughts were spinning in my head. Can my marriage be saved? Do I want to save him? Will I be as happy if I become a single guy again? Is there any future possible with Stephanie? And I realized that, at least at that moment, everything depended on what Carrie had to say. It depends on what her story will be and how she will tell it. So, Carrie, let's get down to business. What's first? Shall we talk about my day with Stephanie or your week with Roger Dion? Which of us has had more sex? How many other lovers, or sex friends, or whatever you call them, have spread your legs? Will we have an open marriage or no marriage at all? Where would you like to start? I took her by surprise. She stared at me, her face pale, her mouth open. Then she began to cry quietly. "Jack, I'm a terrible person." She spoke quietly, tears flowing down her face onto the table. "I'm selfish, I'm immature, I'm a liar and a deceiver." She looked up at me. "You know that before you, I never had a relationship that lasted even a year. I was always, I don't know, restless or moody or claustrophobic, always unhappy with what I had. And when we met, when we fell in love with each other and you proposed to me, I was so happy, so glad. I felt like it was finally over. Now I have found the right guy, and I will love him to death, forever. No more worrying about what or who else is out there. Only one person who made me so happy. Now I was the only one who was surprised. No dodging, no trying to downplay what she had done, even though I didn't know it all yet. This was not what I expected. And I was, she continued, happy, I mean, with you, with us, even with the fact that I became a stepmother for the children. She looked at me. I can't tell you how happy I feel when I think about it. But that didn't stop me from continuing to be a selfish, spoiled, cheating bitch. And I know I ruined everything, and I don't even know what. At this moment, she was completely speechless, sobbing convulsively, covering her face with her hands. I waited for her to cry. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to hug her, but most of me wanted her to feel what she was feeling. Loneliness, guilt, fear. She made me feel like crap, and I wanted her to feel like crap. Not very noble, perhaps, but can you blame me? After a few minutes, she began to calm down and take a breath. "Why don't you go wash up and we can sit and talk?" I said. When we sat down, I asked, "Can you imagine what will happen next?" She shook her head, looking concerned, and I said, "Actually, me too. But we'll start with you telling me about it. Not the disgusting details, but who, how many, where, and when. And damn it, Carrie, if you lie to me one more time, even about something small, I will kick your fucking ass out of this house." "Okay," she said thinly. "No lies. There were 3 of them. A one-night stand 5 years ago when she was visiting Margie and they went dancing at a club in Nashville. They both picked up the guys and took them to Margie's for the night. And then 3 years of nothing. Carrie was shocked by herself, afraid of what she had done. But the scare was short-lived. She did it again, got picked up at a bar while visiting Margie, and spent the night in the guy's hotel room. He was a married businessman from Los Angeles. After that, Carrie said, she was no longer so scared. She felt bad. She swore to herself that she would never do this again, but she was no longer so scared. The 3rd guy was Roger Dion. It was just as I imagined. He met her on business in Charlotte. They flirted. And instead of telling him to fuck off, she let him keep working on her. A few months later, after several private dinners and a few stolen kisses, she agreed. But she told him that she would absolutely never meet him in Charlotte. In the end, he came up with the idea for her to visit him in Florida. On her last visit to Margie, she flew into Nashville on Saturday, then boarded a plane to Miami, and spent 4 days with Roger before returning to Nashville for the rest of the week. She didn't want to risk flying home straight from Miami and somehow I would find out about it. She swore that she had no intention of seeing him again, and I believed her. No part of this story suggested anything romantic. And sex, at least the way Carrie told the story, sounded pretty ordinary. Exciting, like a new novel, but nothing cosmic. When she finished telling me her story, she leaned back in her chair, looking exhausted. To my surprise, I discovered that I already had a clear idea of what I wanted. "Okay," I said. "Now it's your turn to listen. When I point at you, you'll say, 'Yes, Jack.' Otherwise, shut your damn mouth. Okay, Carrie?" I pointed at her. She nodded, looking scared, then said belatedly, "Yes, Jack. I love you, and I appreciate our marriage. And I fucking hate what you did. Part of me wants to grab you by the neck and slowly choke you, watching your face as you die. You shit on me and our marriage. You betrayed our love, my faith in you, and all the hard work we both put in to make our marriage successful. You should be fucking ashamed of yourself. You know that, right?" I pointed at her, and she quickly replied, "Yes, Jack," nodding so energetically that I almost broke into a smile. "There are only 3 things that can happen, and I've already ruled out one of them," I said. I stood up and started walking back and forth, watching her face. "First, we can get a divorce. Nice, simple, and clean. We'll just say, 'Hasta la vista,' and you can move out of this house and spread your legs for any asshole you see. You can be free, be as restless, selfish, and irresponsible as you want. No need to lie, no need to trample on anyone's heart. Second, we may decide to have an open marriage. There's no point in living up to our marriage vows. They're so outdated and depressing, right? You have sex with whoever you like, and I have sex with whoever I like, Stephanie Prince or whoever, and if we feel like it, we can even do it with each other from time to time. But this option doesn't suit me. There will be no real love, no trust, no connection. This is not a marriage that can make me happy, so I won't do it. The third remains. We remain married. We decided that the words we said to each other 12 years ago, the words that we would leave everyone else, still mean something to us. Even after you pissed on them all, and after I spent several nights in Stephanie's bed, I choose the third. She looked scared, but said it right away. Didn't I say not to talk? Yes, Jack, I did. I can't help it. I choose the third. That is, if I have a choice. You haven't said yet whether you'll give me the right to vote, but my vote is for the third. Okay, I said. I was pleased, but didn't show it. Now shut up again. The only one who has a say is me, okay? Say, yes, Jack. Yes, Jack. There was a tiny flicker of a smile on her face, and I thought maybe mine did too. Number 3 means that a lot needs to be corrected. A lot needs to be done. You get tested to find out what sexually transmitted diseases this asshole gave you. And I think I need to get tested too. I was careful with Stephanie, but even though you say you used condoms, I'll be damned if I'm going to take any chances. You start going to a therapist, and we'll start going to a marriage counselor. Honestly, I think the first one is important. I don't see it as our fucking problem. It's your fucking problem. But I'm sure the consultant will help us communicate better, even if it's just so I know when I have to kick your ass before you do anything even 1/8 dumber. Next, press your legs together. Understood? I pointed at her and she replied, Yes, Jack. There were tears on her face, but she began to smile. You remind yourself that there is only one guy you flirt with, one guy you kiss or touch, one guy you have sex with. Always. And that's me. And if you don't like it, if you think it's too restrictive, then we're back to number 1. I looked at her, and the smile disappeared. Yes, Jack. Yes, I understood. Yes, absolutely. Okay, I said, still pacing, after thinking. There may be a few more as we move forward, things I'll think about later or things a marriage counselor might suggest. But for now, there are 2 more. First of all, Nashville is over. You'll never go there again. Carrie's head jerked. She opened her mouth, but then closed it again. Then she nodded and said, Yes, Jack. Your little friend Margie was at the very center of how you ruined our marriage, and it will stop. If you want to see her, you can invite her here. And after I bust her ass, I might even let her stay in the guest room for a night or 2. Understood? Yes, Jack. She said it before I even looked at her. And I'm sorry. You're absolutely right about Margie and about all this. Now the last thing. I keep seeing Stephanie. Not all the time, but from time to time. Whenever I want. Have dinner, sleep, whatever. Until I decide I've had enough. Or you've had enough. Say it. I pointed at her. Yes, Jack. Her face was pale, and the tears returned to her eyes. Not too nice, is it? Thinking about me with her? This gorgeous body? These long legs hugging me? Are we having sex or just kissing? Maybe we just lie and whisper sweet words to each other. No, Jack, this is not very pleasant. It hurts. It hurts a lot. And I know why you say that, and you're right. So I say, Yes, Jack. She cried a little, but held my gaze. And I'm so sorry for being a selfish idiot. And for causing you such pain. She burst into sobs again, and this time I went over and hugged her, still angry but loving her warmth and softness. She hugged me tightly, crying, and finally said, You haven't told me your decision yet, but I'm still for the third. With all your conditions. Fine. This is my voice too. Number 3. Carrie was fast asleep next to me, snoring softly. I was still awake, thoughtful, but feeling good. The evening ended with prolonged loving pleasure of my manhood. She wanted to make love, but I absolutely refused to have sex with my own wife with a condom, and she looked quite ashamed when I said so. I knew that we had already had unprotected sex the night before, but I wanted to emphasize this. When the blood test results come back, and not a day before, until then, you'll just have to please me. I felt amazingly optimistic about my marriage. Perhaps part of it was just a certain degree of maturity. At 41, my reaction to her betrayal was stronger than the blind rage I might have felt at 25. As I told you at the beginning of this story, I know Carrie loves me. She's spoiled, but she loves me. So if we can do something about the part that's broken, maybe we'll succeed. I didn't think I'd be dating Stephanie for very long. The sex was great and I really liked her, but I couldn't see how it could stop me from repairing my marriage to Carrie. Nevertheless, the opportunity itself seemed to me to be a good level of pressure, and I really enjoyed licking the Kung Pao chicken off Stephanie's breasts. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.